How to get to be November. Aspens are down to their bones already. I'm Olivia, or Liv, Roumel, and I'm a singer-songwriter, guitarist, vocalist, writer in a lot of ways. It's based in neo-soul, jazz, soul, that whole realm, with a lot of singer-songwriter influence also. I love Joni Mitchell. I love, just the singer-songwriter side of it and a lot of nature themes. So I thought of this the other day. I thought of nature soul, some combination of neo-soul, but nature. So I don't know. It's grown on me. It's a good question. I started when I was like 13 or 14, just had a teacher. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was a teacher there. And he gave me a lot of the basics. And from there, I sort of taught myself. Like I said, I don't know if I said Joni Mitchell, but I was very influenced by alternative tunings and kind of just doing what I wanted and not thinking in music theory. So that's kind of how I got into it. It almost always starts with a lyrical idea. A lot of the time I'm out hiking and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta write this in the notes section of my phone or run back to my house and write this down. And usually there's a melody that comes with it, and then the process is just about shaping it and bringing out the best moments of it, and then obviously adding chords, playing guitar over it. So it's all shaped around like a lyrical idea and a feeling more than anything. Well, the band, I've been so much of a solo artist for a very long time that, only recently have I really been giving that to other musicians to play with. But I just like to trust them to do what they hear. And like I said, it's really centered around the story and like around the lyrics. So I want it to always match that vibe. So it's important for me to play with people who get the message. So I'm exploring that still. I think it came to me like when I was like 19, and I was at Berkeley at the time, and it didn't like hit me, but it was always in my periphery. But I think, Erykah Badu for sure. When I was a teenager, that was really, I guess, the first neo soul that I really identified with loving. And also, I don't know if you count this as neo soul, but Amy Winehouse has always been, if anyone knows, they know, a huge influence of mine. So she's kind of in that world, but from there it just expanded. So. Very intense and dense. That's how I explain it. Like just dense of information, dense with all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life who do different things. And I know it sounds cliche, but it was my first real like little fish in a big sea moment. And I was there for vocal jazz originally, and then I shifted into songwriting. And I think through that time, I just really started to view myself as an artist differently. And I eventually left and saw that it wasn't what I wanted, but it was just a very dense time with a lot of musical and information and a lot of really cool people. Some part of me wishes that I dove deeper into that community, but, I was a little fish. I was 19. I barely knew myself at the time. Teaching is cool because I feel like I have all these tools and I have all these different areas of awareness around music, and, I teach one-on-one, and so I really get to use, it's not the same format for everyone. I know that's like, duh, that's why you take private lessons, but really getting to say, oh, I hear this influence in your music or in what you're trying to create or this sound. And I love giving people listening lists and just kind of helping them expand their world of music, as well as getting better at, I primarily teach singing, so that's the main goal most of the time, is learning how to sing, learning how to support that, which I love helping people on that journey. Because so many people think that singing is not like other instruments, that you either have it or you don't, but that's not true. I love showing people that it's possible. And yeah, just showing people music, the world of music, is really cool. There are things that come to me naturally with singing that I don't have to think about until I'm having to teach it. So I relearn things and I find shortcuts to things with technique or whatever that I wouldn't have to think about otherwise. I also learn about other music. I mean, students bring music to me all the time, so that's super cool. And I learn about, having accountability in a lot of ways. If I say to a student, do this routine, and I'm like, oh, cool, that routine actually works, so I'm going to do that on myself now. Maybe that's bad to say as a teacher, but it really keeps me accountable, and that's something that always helps me learn more. So. I wrote November 2 Novembers ago when I was living up at this house up Boulder Canyon, and it was just perfect. I had, nature surrounding me and the ability just to walk while I worked, go out, explore nature. And I think the vocal or the lyrics came to me while I was just walking around. So, but more specifically, that song is about kind of that feeling of, oh shit, like, we're at November. Like, the year has passed and we're here now. There are no leaves on the trees. Daylight savings, I think, like, I wrote it the weekend of or the weekend after daylight savings, just when you're like, oh no, it's dark now. And so it's about that inevitable change into winter, but it's like the very beginning of it. But then with that, there was this whole other layer. Well, there's this clarity I was writing about this today. There's this clarity that happens in November where you see through all the trees. There's no leaves on the trees and there's no snow yet. So it's like everything's very clear. And I feel that way in my spirit, in my being, and able to see things in my life that I can't in other times of year, when it's louder, when it's sunnier, when it's whatever. And so November kind of ties together these themes of like winter is happening, getting into that hermit state, and with that, like, I am seeing things differently. And one of those things, I mean, the lyrics, I was gonna leave this all mysterious, but I actually do want to share kind of what it's about. It's like, is it too good to be? Oh, she laid out the future just for me. Think of how easy it would be if it all went according to how I think it should be. And that is really about wanting the answers from something outside of yourself. Specifically me, I like a spiritual teacher at a time. That's really what that was about. And to me, all of those themes went together with the nature theme. So, yeah. So, okay. I mean, I do visual art also. That's kind of a separate thing. But writing as like a self-discovery practice, like so much of the writing I do is just it never sees the light of day. So that's why I think it's so powerful. Like, what I do choose to put to music and what I do choose to put out into the world is almost always has to do with like a personal transformation or something deep that's going on. So there's that. And then also visual art, which sometimes is tied into my music. Like on my first single that I released this spring, it's the album cover is something I drew. And I'm a total Joni Mitchell freak. She said something like, she has God, like crop rotating. So like when she has writer's block, she's like, oh, cool, that's a time where when I'm gonna do visual art. So I like to think of being creative in that way. So if I'm not really inspired to write lyrics one day or write a chord progression, I always have visual art, or I always have poetry or something else there. So I like to rotate the creative. So, with my original music, yes, it is a fairly new thing, and I'm still just in this exploratory phase of figuring out that sound, which is really fun. I have been in other bands where we kind of played a bunch of stuff, covers, other people's originals, a little bit of my originals, but this is the first time where I feel like I'm forming people around my sound. So, did I answer that fully? No, I just didn't know if I missed a part of that, is all. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, every time I perform, I feel like I walk away with something to learn. But specifically Denver, I mean, yeah, so coming from being like really just doing solo singer-songwriter stuff in Boulder for a while, now branching into Denver more, the audience is different. You know, it's Boulder is very much a bubble, as much as that's said. So, but just, I mean, anywhere I perform, I feel like I really am able to feel and see how my music lands. And I like to test out new material a lot. And I always learn from that. I mean, I'm trying to think Denver specifically, though. Just the jam scene and the improv scene is also a huge part of me more recently in the last year. Just really getting into the spirit of making music in the moment and not having it all planned out, because that is, I wouldn't say a downfall of mine, but I get into being a control freak and liking my music a certain way. And having it be very planned out. So it's really good for me as a musician and a human just to be in that space of spontaneous creation. And I learn so much from watching that too. And I spend a lot of time just observing and listening to that whole scene. Like, I had no idea there was such a big scene here until a couple of years ago. I was like, whoa, like specifically neo soul hip hop. So it's very cool. And you're part of that, Eric. I might have to think about that one. Oh, actually, no. Well, maybe not surprising, but Bjork. I love me some Bjork. Not only just her music, but her expression and identity and how she talks about being an artist and just the visual aspect of it. I love Bjork. I did a whole case study on her in college, so maybe that one. I'm trying to think of anything else. A lot of it is tied into the world of jazz, neo-soul, hip-hop in some way, but, I already said it, love me some Joni Mitchell, but that's also a big part of all of this, so, yeah. Wait, I want to add something to that. Greek music. I'm Greek, and I love, like, Greek folk music, and especially in the summer, I listen to a lot of Greek folk music. Yeah, I always try to. I think hopefully all musicians can relate to this, that sometimes you don't want to watch yourself. If you filmed a performance and, maybe feel like you didn't have some perfect moments, as we all do. But I like to intentionally sit down and watch myself and take notes, like from watching the videos or listening to the audio. I feel like you always grow so much from that. Even if there's a little bit like, I don't want to look, because we're our worst critic, right? So definitely, I love doing that. I love to take notes. yeah, man, like musically, otherwise, like that is such a vast question. I try to confront my fear the best I can in in life in general. If something scares me, it usually means there's something juicy there that I should go towards. I mean, sometimes it's straight up like dangerous. Like I do a lot of wilderness shit, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, let's leave before the storm comes in, that sort of thing. But fear musically, like, oh, I want to get up there, but I'm scared. Like that feeling of, I felt that so long before I got up on stage at any of these jams, and doing it, you realize you're never gonna feel ready. I know that's said by so many artists, so many people in general, but you're never gonna feel ready. And by doing the thing and putting yourself out there, you're gonna learn so much from. Because I think for so long, I just had the mentality of I'm gonna lock myself away in my bedroom and shed for years before I show anyone anything, and you know that gets old after a while. So yeah, shit scares me, but I do it anyways. I've been reflecting on that myself. I mean, I have so many songs in the vault, and ones that I play live that just haven't been released as of yet. So I think I'm still figuring out the way I want to guide it. I'll be a little mysterious about that. But I have a collection of like 4 songs, well, 5 including November, that are like part of one being that I want to release next as well. There is a whole title for it and everything, but I'm going to keep it a little mysterious. But that's kind of the next thing I'm going to put out. In terms of live performing, like I said, I like to experiment with what lands well, and I like to try out songs in different contexts and kind of challenge the part of myself that only sees it in one way. So whether that's giving the guitar part to someone else while I just do vocals, I really like to see what happens with my songs when I put it in other people's hands. So that's also a fun part of this with some of my newer stuff, I guess. Like, literally, is it easy to hear myself on stage? No, never. Vocalists never can hear themselves. So, if you mean from a sound sense, I have kind of gotten used to that, but it's not always ideal. But do you mean more in like a hearing myself fully with the band and like hearing how my voice lands kind of thing? Well, okay. Yes. So, I mean, wow, that's an interesting question, actually. Will you ask it again? I just want to hear it again. When I get in my head, yes. And so that is, especially with improv, something I'm always working on. And now, I mean, the type of music I play, improv is weaving itself into it more and more, which is wonderful. So I think the more that I get out of my head and I trust that I know what's right for the moment and I'm led by my center, my heart, if you will, versus this, better things happen. And it's so, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, like it's so crazy how much my music is affected by my emotional state and what's going on that day. So I'm trying to learn as I fumble through life and performing, like, okay, here's some things I can do to calm my nervous system before I go on stage, because the tools, the skill, the notes are all there. It's just, it's how I'm doing in that moment and what to do with them, basically. Well, I just got back from a 3-day like adventure with some great hikes in there. This time of year, the high peaks, the 13ers and 14ers get a little sketchy, but I've been on a mission to backpack the full Colorado Trail, which is like a 400-mile, I think, don't quote me on that. Pretty sure it's 400-mile trail that goes from Littleton to Durango. And so I've been hiking that in pieces. So my goal is to finish that, in the next year. And just as a side note, I always end up writing, having so many revelations about myself as a musician on trail, even if I don't mean to. People always ask, like, do you take a guitar? Do you take this? And it's like, no, but I feel like that time as an artist is so important to have the deep reflection time. And it just so happens to also push my body and my mind a lot. So it all kind of goes together. This is kind of random, but there's this song that's been stuck in my head, and I am on this band, on this artist, and I'm trying to get like the Denver scene more to listen to her and them, which is Alicia Joy, sorry, and 3070. And this cover, they do this cover of In My Bed, the Amy Winehouse tune, and it's just been the whole time this this bass groove has been going through my head, and yeah, that I'm just remembering how much Amy Winehouse has influenced this whole scene, and especially me and a lot of the vocalists I really am inspired by. So, totally random thing, but that's been stuck in my head. No, playing in a band is great, and I really want to step into more. I love playing guitar, and I love singing and playing guitar, but something also magical happens when I just am singing and when I can be a little more improvisational over my own music. So that's something I'm excited about doing more in the future, having like more fluidity and not playing guitar on everything that I do with the band, and also seeing what guitarists can do with the guitar parts I write. So yeah. Usually I can hear as I'm writing the melody, either in my head or out loud, I hear chords that kind of support it and go around it. And then later I will play like the most obvious chords, the first ones that come to me, either on guitar or keys. And I'm writing a lot more on piano these days just because it's forcing me to write in a different way because I have different abilities on piano. So I'm going to choose different things. So a lot of the time, though, I'll go through this process of refining and saying, oh, well, what if I added this? What if I went to this note instead? But that is a very tricky process, I find, of if you mess with it too much, if you mess with the original idea, it's like clay. Or maybe, I don't know anything about clay, honestly, but it's like if you mess with it too much, it falls apart. But there's like these fine-tuning aspects that can happen where you can make a note pop that you didn't realize could go there. And harmonically, I like to mess with things with chords and, see how the melody feels with a different chord than I originally intended, so. Well, expect to see me just on the scene more, just experimenting, jamming, trying stuff out. I love doing that. I've fallen in love with doing that more and more. Also, like I said earlier, or wherever this ends up in the interview, this EP I'm working on, that there's like 5 songs, including November. So that is really the next project I'm going to put out into the world. So watch out for that. And then some side projects on top of that. Don't know where the muse will lead me. I want to release more music, and I want to get better at the process of releasing because it was a lengthy process and I learned a lot from it, from recording November, and I just want to get more efficient with the process of recording and getting other people to play on it and so forth. And a big part of that is about letting go. Other than that, I want to finish hiking the Colorado Trail, figure out how to be the best human I can be all the time. And this is not meant in a self-deprecating way, but sometimes I think people are confused by my music. The general audience, I think people who already listen to neo soul, that whole realm, like my music isn't that weird, but I forget that most people don't listen to that. And so I'm out here playing, just adding bars here, doing weird harmonic stuff, which to me, it's all just there for the music. So I don't know is the short answer. I don't know how it's always received, and that's okay. But weird experiences at shows, man, I'm trying to think if I've ever been like, well, I used to busk a lot. Actually, that's part of my journey that I never talked about. When I first moved to Boulder, I had like nothing to do for a month before I transferred to a school out here. And so I just busked like every day, and that's how I met people. And I had a few experiences of men trying to take my guitar from me and show me how to play, which now doesn't happen quite as literally, but things like that do happen. So that would be, yeah, being a woman musician. That's a whole box we can unpack, but yeah. I mean, this is vague, but just like the entire Denver music scene, specifically the whole like neo soul scene, like a lot of this, a lot of what helped pop me into this was like Wednesdays Off the Cuff, led by E-Man, and like I guess I want to shout him out because he's awesome and that whole world is awesome. So yeah, I'm just grateful for everyone around me. That's, yeah. Yeah, thank you for interviewing me. This is awesome.